on today's episode, we had Jonathan Wolk, and this was an episode I was really intrigued by. So he's an architect, he's in construction, and he is a real estate broker. Broker, is that how you say it? Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed this episode, and there was a funny topic you wanted to hit on.
Oh, was there?
Oh. Allegedly.
Okay. Do you know what a floppy disk is?
I don't. Is it like a hard drive?
No, it's not like it's not a hard disk. It's an actual disk. It's floppy. They used to be floppy, and then they got not so floppy.
And then they got harder.
Yeah. So, but the original I think was 5 1/4 inches, and it was kind of a floppy feel to it, like paper almost, and you could put it into the computer, and you could make it do programs and things, and you could save information on it.
How is that different than a disk?
Well, like it would, I guess it would be similar to a compact disc,
yeah,
in some ways. So, but it was
floppy.
It's square, yeah. Anyway, so we're getting off track. But,
oh wait, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's those square things. Those aren't floppy though.
Yeah, well the smaller, the 3.5 are more hard. The big ones were 5 1/4 inch, and they were pretty floppy. They flopped.
Okay.
So they were called a floppy disk. So.
Okay, well, this might seem very random to the listeners, but this is something that they're going to get to later in the episode, where they're talking about like uses of technology and like what type of technology they use in his company.
Yeah, which wasn't a primary focus of the conversation, but it was a funny thing to talk about, I guess, as an intro.
Yeah, so primary, I think that it was just the whole concept of they don't design a generic house or a generic building for every single person. It's like, what can I customize for you, and how is this going to apply for you? Because we're not going to, because they have all three aspects of contractor, architect, and real estate all in one.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we get to the benefit of, so Jonathan is all three. He does all three with his company. And so you get, I asked him an interesting question, like which one would you want to do? But we'll find out his answer. But you see that there's a benefit of having all three when you're working with somebody like him, right?
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. We had some fun conversations. We got into some really good inspirational aspects of why he does what he does, and also really, the type of customers or clients that he works with and their why. And one of the reasons that he sees success in certain projects, he can see like, okay, these people have a good why, they have a good vision. So I find that interesting, that we're, one of the things we talk about on here, enhance the world around us. So, in essence, we want to work with, I think what it is we want to work with people that also want to enhance the world around us.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Well, my name is Andy Richardson, and this is our producer, Madeline, and this is the Enhance AEC podcast, where we speak with professionals in the AEC industry and find out their why and what their vision is for what they're doing. Let's jump to the intro.
Welcome to Enhance, an AEC podcast, where we learn the why behind AEC professionals so that you can learn your why.
Well, so Jonathan, welcome to the Enhance podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And so the first question I really want to get into, because you're an architect, you're a contractor, you're a real estate agent, a man of many talents, if you will. But the question I have for you is, if you could only do one of those three, which one would you go with?
Well, for me, it's not one of those three. For me, it's really, they're all one. So in order to do a project, and in this vein, sort of specifically residential, although it works for commercial as well, it's, as I see it, it's really the way it makes sense to be done. So if you're looking, let's just say you're somebody looking and they say, hey, I want to build a home in North Carolina, it makes sense for us to be there when you're looking for land, because you're like, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do, and so when you're going to look for land, let's look at some options and evaluate those options as opposed to just going and buying land and or a site, and so what are maybe you want to do a really modern home and you wind up buying a house in a subdivision with HOA rules, and you have to have a 4 and 12 roof pitch with shingles of a certain make and double hung windows. What you want to do isn't going to work there. And so so it really starts, the design process starts in looking for the land, right? To what your scope is. And then for us to start the design, we've got to have the land so we know what we're working with, what the parameters are. Is it north facing, south facing, whatever the case may be. And then really to do the construction right, you really want to know what those parameters and principles are and why you chose that location, what you want to build, what's important, what are your needs, what are your wants. And so to me, it's really the whole point of it being integrated is all of it working together. And so it's hard to separate it out. Although we do occasionally for clients, we'll sometimes offer just, one or a couple of scenarios, but really, in my belief, to really execute it the best, it's really that full integration. And to me, it goes back to, whether you're an Apple person or a PC person. If you like the Apple, it's because it's got the software and the hardware integrated. And that's essentially what we're talking about. If you go and you buy a car, you're not buying a Toyota that's designed by Ford, or you're not buying a Ford that they had, Nissan design for them and then put out to the lowest bidder, and the lowest bidder wound up being Ford. So now Ford's building this Nissan. No other industry really does it that way, right? So the fact that people say, oh, I'm going to buy this property, then I'm going to hire this designer, and then I'm going to put it out to bid, and I'm going to take the low bid, so the person that missed the most information and probably got it wrong, that's then who I'm going to hire to build this thing. So,
exactly.
And none of those three things worked together, and none of those three groups of people have any kind of contract that ties them together. All those contracts are directly to the owner, and so the owner winds up having to manage and run a process that they don't know anything about. That's not where they made their money. They're, do something else, right? So it's an interesting methodology that we've concocted in this country as a way to execute building projects that I don't necessarily agree with. So I don't see it as three things. We have to be three separate entities because the way the laws work and licensing works. But to me, it's one and the same.
Do you see that being something that is ever going to change, or is this just how it is with the three?
I think there would have to be a lot of fundamental changes to have that change.
Right.
You're talking about licensing. You're talking about health, safety, welfare, people. I don't see that ever changing. And I think what we've done is and there's a few other firms like ours in North Carolina and elsewhere that you're set up so that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's legally and making sure that we're doing things right. But also at the same time delivering to our clients a really one source responsibility for them so they get the best that they can get. Yeah,
which you and I aren't necessarily in control of those moving wheels, but it's a podcast, so we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate you playing along with those questions. And so regarding that, I mean, you didn't start out in all three, though, right? You probably picked you probably started out in architecture, I imagine, or
Yeah, I started in art. So as a kid, you know, going back to third grade, it's what I wanted to be, was an architect. Um, and but you know, you I think this is true for a lot of the general public. People don't really know what an architect does, or they think they know what an architect does. They think they know what a builder does. And I think a lot of people already naturally assume they're kind of an integrated process. Um, yeah, I like the idea of design. I like the idea of designing buildings. But I was always building stuff, whether it was a bike, whether it was with Lego, Lincoln Logs, girders and panel, whatever. I was always building stuff, and really formulated the idea when I went up to Alaska and built my sister's cabin that I had designed. A super simple building, but that's really where it was like, this is the way to do it: is you design it and then you build it, and then that way you're also learning from your design as you build, and what did you do, what can you do better, you know, those kinds of things. So it really was architecture first, then construction. But as I was involved in architecture and construction and doing design build, people would bring to you this property, and it was like, oh, you've already bought the property without even looking at, you know, let's just say you buy this property that's on a slope and you want a single level house. Well, that's going to be an expensive property to build, because now you got to level out the slope, right? Or, you know, do something there. So I quickly realized, yeah, we really need to be there, whether it's buying a house that you want to renovate, do an addition to. Can you do the addition and renovation that you want to? Can you do what you want to do cost effectively? You know, can you do it in that neighborhood? You know, are there HOA restrictions that don't allow you to do what you want to do? So that's really where we added the real estate component to it, because it really starts when you have the idea that you want to buy something, build something, modify something. That's where you need your architect and contractor there with you, so that you've got you're sort of thinking through this whole situation in 3 dimensions. And we help a lot of other realtors out, and I'm happy to do that, because I want them to be successful as well, get the client what they want. I don't want the client winding up buying something that doesn't work for them, and we're happy to be there alongside them and help find that solution. And
Right.
sometimes it might be that the solution is, if this is what you want to do, this isn't the right property for you.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, sometimes it is, you have to deal with what you have, right?
Or change, or you've got to change your wants and needs, right? You got to change your scope. Oh, you want a 3-story house. Well, this neighborhood doesn't allow 3 stories, or the foundation won't accommodate 3 stories, or, you know, whatever the case may be, right?
Right. Right. Which, now you're talking my world a little bit, right? The
Yeah.
structural. So, and I was thinking about that, you know, analogy, which I love Mac myself, Apple. I mean, I use a MacBook, but so I understand the analogy of, you know, they make their own parts. They make the hardware and the software, and it goes together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is a different mentality. Now they've evolved over time, where they, you know, they use Intel chips, for example, and
Yeah.
so, but the thing that I was going to ask is, how far do you take that? I mean, as far as, I mean, it would be great to have even more, right? Like even more people on the team that were integrated and understood how to work together. I mean, how do you deal with that?
I that now you're talking like my wife, who wants to have everybody, but for the size projects and the type of projects we do, that doesn't make sense for us.
Sure.
I think what the way we've sort of mitigated that is we have our core team that we've worked with for years,
Mm-hmm.
and they not only know how we work, but they also know how each other work. So my framer's done work with my plumbing, mechanical, electrical subs, and knows what to expect and anticipate, from those guys. And we've worked through things time and time again. And so that's where the team, even though we're not all in the same company, but we're all part of the same team, has been helpful. And that's kind of what we use to kind of mitigate that kind of aspect of it.
Sure.
And that's why it's great to introduce new members to the team from time to time. It's always good to see how things are done differently, but it's also like, hey, what we're used to is, this, and we need to make sure you guys do that as well, and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes you learn things that are better, and sometimes you're like, I like the way my guy does it better or something. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think in this world currently, to try, like, for me to have a mechanical crew, it's so specialized and requires so much, like it wouldn't make sense for us to provide mechanical contracting as part of our in-house services.
Right. And I guess so. As you're advising your client, how do you change from one hat to another? I'm wearing the quote architect hat, contractor hat, real estate hat. How do you switch over?
So I don't. If as I'm talking to you now, I'm talking to you as an architect, a realtor, and a contractor. When I step into something, I'm kind of looking at it from all three perspectives. Now, there's times where I've got to sort of say, hey, I've got to put the architect hat on and address, this is a design problem, right? So I've got to address the design problem aspect of it. Or now that I've addressed that design problem, now we've got to look at, okay, what's the cost, or what are the logistics, the construction issues relative to that design solution. So there are times where you've got to kind of go back and forth, but really for me, and that's really the benefit, is I'm kind of always coming at it from that perspective of understanding. So like, we were looking at a house for a client yesterday, going into a neighborhood that, they want to do this cool house. It's a great piece of property, but the house they want to do is going to be worth way more than the neighborhood, right? And it's going to be the nicest house in the neighborhood. And so I'm not representing them as their real estate agent, but I said to them, hey, just be aware. Have you guys thought about the fact that, what we're talking about here is building you the nicest house in the neighborhood, that, it's going to take you years for ROI and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, we're clear on that. We know. And I was like, okay, because that's important to make sure you're aware and consider that if you're going to build a, $600,000-$700,000 house in a $300,000 neighborhood, you're not going to get a comp that says, hey, your house is worth what you spent on it, so it's sort of those kinds of things, and thinking through. And then even in the design, like, do you want, you want, like, we want a lot of glass, we want a modern look, and it's okay. Yeah, that's cool. There are some cost savings in sort of that modern look, because you're not doing spending money on a bunch of trim and stuff. But now the structural, to get those big open spans, we might need some bigger beams or something like that, because we're not going to have a bunch of load-bearing walls. That might add to the construction cost in terms of the building structure, as opposed to trims and finishes and stuff. So you're kind of always thinking, and that's kind of why our diagram is the circle, or some people call it the clock, because it's sort of like, as you're working through these different steps, you are always kind of going back and forth from, you know, maybe the real estate to the architecture to the construction to the architecture, you know, so they all sort of work integratedly.
So is that where the 360 comes in?
That's it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, 360-degree view of the project.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. So when you're meeting with that customer at the very beginning or client, what tips you off? What questions are being asked from the client that tells you this is going to be a great project?
Well, they all have the potential to be great projects. That's why I love it about it, especially at that stage. It's really, to me, it's really about what is it, it's kind of become cliche, what's your why, but it's sort of like, why are you doing this, right? Like, what are your goals? What are your dreams? You know, is this a forever home? Is this a home to raise your kids in? Is this you're downsizing and the kids have moved out, but you want to have a place where the grandkids are coming to? Is it a vacation home and this is where you want to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas? Is it, you know, what is it? Not just the scope in terms of 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 2-car garage. Not scope like that, but what is it that's driving? What's the aspirational goal of this house? What's it going to do? What do you want it to do for you that makes your life and your better and your family stronger? We did I had this, we were working on this great project for this great church, and we met with the church. So many funny stories about where these guys are great, we started the project kind of at the tail end of COVID, and during COVID they were meeting in the parking lot, right? Because they had to meet outside. And so I was asking them, I was like, okay, well, what is church? You know, what does this mean to you? What's important? And they were like, well, you know, we get together, and we get together, and we after service we always have, you know, a meal, and we always eat together, and it's a smaller church, like maybe less than 100 families. And I said, well, when you were doing COVID, you know, what was wrong with sort of meeting in the parking lot? And they said, well, you know, when it was hot, it got hot, you know, and I said, okay, well, you know, if it's hot, you know, put up a tent, you know, that way it protects you from the rain. And so what I was driving at with them was, it's really, it's not so much about the building. The building serves you to bring everybody together, because you guys were getting together in a parking lot and having a great time and doing absolutely all the same functions that you're doing, that you want to do in this building. And so we really got into that. What was the most important thing about the building was that it was perceived as part of the community and where people can come together. And it wasn't about a big this or a big that or anything. And it was really about coming together. And that I thought I was like, okay, so that's why we want to graduate from the parking lot and a tent to having a building. And I said, okay, now let's start working from that, you know? And so, so a lot of times it's we can get through the scope and parameters and looking through plans and all, you know, and I like this style or that style. It's why are we doing this? Because it's not you know, everybody's watched the movies, you know, it's not an easy process, you know, it's trying. We dig into a lot of your personal life, both financially. We had a client that, you know, they wanted this big 2-headed shower, and it's like, okay, you want a 2-headed shower because, and he's like, well, we both like to shower at the same time. And I'm like, okay, because you like having fun in the shower, you know, you're a couple, you know, like you want to have fun in the shower. Is it just logistics, like you both have to shower at the same time and you go to work at the same time. And we were laughing. He's like, no, we like to have fun in the shower. I'm like, okay, well, then there's some things we want to do to facilitate having fun in the shower, which is great. You should be having fun in the shower, but we get personal with people, right? I mean, we're talking about finances, we're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about things you like, things you don't like. So that's, to me, the fun and exciting part. And those are the questions. I can go through the 4-bedroom, 2.5 baths situation, pretty quickly. Let's dive into what's going to make this unique and why you want this.
Yeah, I think we might have a title for the podcast episode, Jonathan.
There you go.
Have fun in the shower.
That's right. I love it.
No, that's awesome. So, where do we go from that one?
That's right.
But I mean,
I got so many more. So
yeah. So you mentioned that the church had some funny stories. Maybe you could share one there too.
This is, so it's a bit of a long story, but I'll do it as short as I can. But this is great. So when I was in college, I used to walk by, my roommate and I used to walk by going to school. Every morning there was a bumper sticker that said, "My boss is a Jewish carpenter." I had no idea what that meant. That's in reference to Jesus. For anybody who didn't know that, took me a while to figure that out. Well, I'm Jewish. I consider myself a carpenter because I build things. And so we used to joke. We were like, well, you're a Jewish carpenter. You're a Jewish carpenter. So, anyway, but we literally would walk by it to architecture studio every day. So I'm sitting down with the pastor, and this pastor is great. He rolls up on his motorcycle. We're meeting for coffee. And he says, the reason why I'm talking to you is because I didn't want to hire the typical church builder. He goes, there are all these church builders out there and they just do the same thing. And we want somebody that's going to really work with us, understand us, and be very unique. And I said, I'm as far as you can get from these big, multi-million-dollar church building companies that build these $20 million churches. I said, and in fact, I've worked on a couple of churches, but I've never designed and built a church before. And I said, so I'm about as far away from those guys as you can get. And he said, well, that's great. He goes, it's really to us, it's more about hands-on. And I said, okay. And I said, well, I got one more for you that I think will just put me over the top. And he said, what's that? And I said, well, if you want your church built by a Jewish carpenter, here I am. And I looked at him and I'm like, if he laughs, I'm in. If he doesn't laugh, I'm out. And he looks at me for a second and then he got it and he just started laughing. And he's like, we're going to get along great. And I said, then we're good. And I said, because if that kind of humor works for you guys, then good. So we wound up doing design for a really cool, the idea is that it's kind of this modern take on sort of the old country, rural, little white church, a modern, take on that. And it's really coming out quite beautiful. So they by starting with community and what's important to them, we were able to come away with this kind of very nice, simple building that works for them. And that's the exciting part, getting into that stuff. And those stories become important because that's understanding where they're coming from. That's rapport, it's trust, all those sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, this is a place where, like a church is where you worship, it's where you congregate. It's personal, right? It's not just walls. And
right.
Like at your house, that's where you live, but also take a shower, right?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I never really thought about it like that. And that's the type of stuff we're hoping to to learn from. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I wanted to go into next question. Sorry. Um, yeah, I guess really, what kind of cool jobs are you working on right now? Anything or any exciting projects that you have going on?
We're doing that church. We're doing another sort of church edition, kind of youth activity center, if you will. That's also pretty cool. Um, we're doing forever home for a couple. We're doing some restaurants. So a little bit all over the place. Which is kind of what I like, kind of suits my ADD.
Yeah.
I like to have my fingers in a lot of different pots and things going on. Um, we're finishing up a really nice contemporary home that was a really cool process and came out beautifully. Um, and couple little additions, renovations here and there. So yeah, we've got a handful of things, cooking.
So you like to work on you like to have a variety in your life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Awesome.
probably been both a blessing and a curse for me. I look at some of these firms that, do one thing and do it really, really well. And stylistically, you can drive around town and you're like, oh, that's who did that. I know who did that one. I know who did that one. And I think one of the great things about when you look at our website is our projects look very different because I believe our projects, rather than conveying our style, I believe they all convey our quality, but they really convey the style of the owner and the client. And that's what makes me happy, is that it's not me saying, hey, do your project this way. It's us helping them realize their dream and bringing that to life and fruition. And so I love that the diversity of our projects that our website shows, because I think it and just our portfolio shows, but I think it shows best on our website and our socials and stuff. When you see, we might be talking about a barn dominium or a big warehouse project, and then next we might be talking about a basement renovation and addition, or a ADU or a small garage or something like that, and to an office building, to a church. So I like that. I like the diversity, and I like the scale, and it's really about. I've always said I like working on interesting projects with interesting people, and if it's a $50,000-$100,000 garage, that's could be something cool, then let's do it. And if it's a $3 million home, let's do it.
Yeah.
And everything in between.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like having a variety has a benefit to it. Is your organization, do you have a big team, a smaller, nimble team, or?
We've got a medium team. We've got a core group that we've worked with for years, and so kind of internally it's a small team, but then as you look at our consultants and our subcontractors and our trades and our vendors, these are guys that we've worked with for years, and so I think that's what makes it a strong team, is that we know how each other works and works together. We know kind of the good and the bad. It's a relationship. The good and the bad of each other, and I like they like us, we like them, and we like working together.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good relationship right there. Good. What's working well for you right now, generally?
I would say really the kind of going back to that core team, the leanness of the team. We use the same consultants over and over. We use the same subcontractors over and over. We know we get their input. If we're doing design, we get input from the subs as we're looking at stuff or exploring stuff. And so we, I think that type of integration, that type of information sharing, reaching out, they reach out to us on stuff, we reach out to them. That I think that's one, it's hard to find these days. But I think that's also that we've got, that's a little bit of a testament to what we're doing. And I think people like working in that way, and people like to share their knowledge. And I say to my clients, they're asking me about something on the mechanical system, let's say, and well, why is it that way? And I don't know. But let me call my HVAC contractor and ask him and get the information for you, and he can explain it, because he knows the different systems. He knows why it's changed from what it was 5 years ago to today, or why this is better than that, and technology wise, and da 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 da. I can't stay on top of every one of those things, and that's why I like them, because I can reach out to them and they'll explain it. They'll not just explain it to me, but then they'll explain it to our client, and to make sure they're comfortable with it and they understand it and they like that answer or solution. And so having a core team like that you can reach out to is key, or even in the design phase. Hey, what's the best way to do this? Say mechanically or something like that. Are we looking at 2 units or 3 units? Should we do this with mini splits? That kind of stuff. So that's great to not, and then that way my consultants, my PM&E engineers, they're not designing in a vacuum either, right? I've got the trades also looking at it and getting their input, so that they're also getting the input on maybe the best way to do something.
Yeah, it sounds like having that team has really helped you succeed and grow, and assembling that team probably wasn't something an overnight experience either.
Yeah, it's a lot. It takes time. It takes time. You're building relationships. We've built several projects together, and they've built several projects together, so they understand, what they're looking for, what's next, things like that.
Yeah. Is there any, technology is moving so fast right now. We know that to be true, both on the construction, on the architecture, design, but I mean, even maybe the real estate, which there's probably technologies there. What are some technologies that are helping you get ahead right now?
We've tried a lot of different things. In the last year or so, we've actually kind of taken a step back more to sort of baseline kind of stuff, if you will. Construction, especially the kind of construction and scale of construction we do, is still very hands-on, right? You're still hammering nails, you're still laying pipe, you're still digging ditches, you're, putting on roof or roof shingles by hand. It's still very hands-on. It's small companies, and so we're looking at a lot of different communication tools, Slack and Jobber, and some of those different, project management softwares and things like that. And really, we kind of step back from that, because what happens is, for us, we can spend all the time, and our internal team get all up to speed on it and know how to use it and everything, but my plumber might not be using it, and then all of a sudden, if the plumber's not using it, then the whole thing kind of falls apart, right? Because everybody else is relying on the data, or another trade guy is not using it, or because they use something else, or they use some other platform. So to me, it's always like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I love that, R2-D2, this old kind of antiquated robot, goes into the brand new Death Star and can hook right into the terminal, right?
Yeah.
that's the equivalent of me walking into an office with a floppy disk and saying to somebody, and half the people watching this probably don't even know what a floppy disk is, but walking into an office with a floppy disk and asking somebody, hey, can I download these files off this floppy disk? People look at me like I've got three heads. So, so to the point of like, it's changing so fast, like, okay, so we use Slack, but then the plumber uses another program and the mechanical uses another. How do we all get on the same system, or how are we all on unique systems, but that can interface interchangeably, like R2D2 on the Death Star? And so that's where we've fallen back to sort of like old technology, Excel spreadsheets and phone calls and voicemail and email, because that at least is consistent. And it's worked well for us. And we're a small company that works with a bunch of small companies, and that seems to bode well for everybody, and they can communicate, and everybody can still pick up a phone, whether they do or not. That's always another issue, but people can still pick up the phone and just talk through it, So,
Yeah. That's a fair point. I mean, we have, different phones, but yet somehow we're able to talk on the phone, right? I mean, you might have an iPhone and I might have an Android, but that they work. So, perhaps that's the next step, is to get some of this communication where, if you use Teams or Slack, it doesn't really matter. Maybe they could start talking together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I send a lien waiver to one of my subcontractors via DocuSign, and I had to walk them through DocuSign. And I thought DocuSign was kind of one of those old technology, and it's basically self-explanatory. But he was like, what's this what did you send me? And I'm like, dude, it's a DocuSign. I need you to just sign, He's like, well, I'll just come by the office and sign. I'm like, dude, you don't have to come by the office. Just click on the button and like sign it. Like, read it, make sure you're good with it, and sign it, and you're done. Like, well, where do I date it? You don't have to date it. It dates it. Like, when you sign it, and so, and he's a great guy. He does good work and all that, but like, that's the whole point, is like, technologically, that's not his thing, right? He doesn't care. He doesn't want to go that route. So here I'm explaining DocuSign to somebody. How am I going to get him to use a project management software? Yeah. So, or a scheduling software that says, hey, today's the day you're supposed to show up and install and da-da-da. So I think that's the struggle, is a unified platform.
Well, and actually it ties back to the original thesis of what you do, because the whole thing is like, let's be more integrated, right? As a company, design, build, real estate, but there is some fractional aspects of the industry, even so, right?
Mm-hmm.
And imagine, which I'm sure you can imagine, what it's like to not be a design, build, real estate situation. It's even more fractional. It's even more.
And that's why it just, especially for these types of projects, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense, because like, okay, I buy the land, or I buy the house from this person without any understanding of the next step. Then I hire this architect or a designer, and they come in and they do this thing. But I don't know that it's in my budget. And then I take it to these three builders, and they each give me a price, but I really don't know that I'm comparing apples to apples. But the low price is the low price, so I'm going to take that one. And then through the construction process, I find out that, oh, well, they didn't include this, or they didn't include that. Well, now I understand why they were the low price. So it's like, who's happy with that kind of system? And then it's like, oh, well, your designer didn't put that on there. Or, oh, well, when you bought the house, we didn't know that it had blah, 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 lead pipes, and so, I got to call my real estate and be like, well, we didn't know, so like, yeah, why, who's got time for that, right? And then in the meanwhile, if you're building buying and building a $500,000, $1 million house, you probably have something else that's making you your money, not having to manage a design and construction process, right? So like that's the last thing you want to be doing is losing time at work or whatever you do to make money to help pay for this thing. Go spend the time doing that. I had a meeting the other day and we were talking some ballpark stuff with the client and they were like, we want to, I don't want to pay your markup on this and I don't want to pay your markup on that. So I'll just handle that. And I was like, okay. I said, but let me give you an alternative perspective. It's not just saying, oh, hey, this guy show up and paint. He's going to have to go and come back several times. We're going to have to coordinate with him. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do that. Then there's going to be a problem or whatever, and then he's going to have to come back or he's going to have to clean up. And so you want to manage all that process because I'm not calling the painter because he works for you. He doesn't work for me. So every time I'm calling you to tell you that you've got to get him. And then when he doesn't show up, I call you and say, oh, well, he didn't show up and da-da-da. And I said, why don't this person sells for a living? And I said, for the few $1,000s that you're going to save on my markup for his work, you go and do what you do and sell, and you'll make 10 times more money in the time rather than trying to coordinate your painter and pay for my markup.
Yeah. So what was the result?
They were like, oh, that's an interesting point. And I'm like, yeah, like, I get it, but do what you do, make money at what you do, because you're obviously successful and good at what you do, because you're able to hire me to do this project. Focus on doing that, and I will do the best that I can to build you what you want.
Yeah. Okay. And did he end up doing that?
Yeah. I mean, we're in the beginning process of it, but yeah, that's the direction we're going.
Okay. Well, sounds like a good analogy you gave him, a good reasoning. So, at the risk of sounding a little cliche, Jonathan, because our one of our big things is enhanced podcasts. We do want to know what your why is, right? So I say it a little bit tongue in cheek, but so what is it that what causes you to want to do this for a living and to do the triad that you do and to help people out? Like what are you trying to accomplish?
Well, I do it. I mean, really, I do it for my wife and daughter to provide for them the best life that I can for them. That's first and foremost. And I really like the customer service aspect of it, if you will, and making our clients happy and helping them fulfill their dreams, right? Like these houses that we build is fulfilling a dream for them. Mm. There's something special there, right? It's a home. It's not, we're not out there doing spec houses and things like, things like that. We're building custom homes for people to live in, and whether it's their forever home or whatever, it's maybe it's a home where they're going to raise their family and make memories, and I really love that aspect of it. I mean, there's also like a real, I've done it for myself, and there's a real envy of being able to do that for people, and like, man, now that we're done, like you get to live in your dream home. Like how awesome is that? And that's why, when you finish a job, it's a little bit sad, but it's also like, as they're making these decisions and time always becomes an issue or a constraint, it's like, don't let this house that you're going to be in for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe longer. Who cares about a week or 2 weeks? I know right now that a week seems huge, right? It seems so huge because for whatever reason. But in 10 years, you're not even going to remember that week. You might remember the pain. You might be, oh my God, I remember oh God, we were waiting, da da da, or this, and we needed that. But like, oh my God, you're gonna have been enjoying your house. You're gonna have had so many Christmases here, or Hanukkahs, or whatever, birthdays, Thanksgivings. Like, think of that. Like, that's the awesome. That's the awesomeness of it, right? And that's why I love doing this stuff. And that's why when we tend to talk to people, we've had flippers call us, right? And they're like, oh, I love your integrated approach. And can you help me? And you can help me find the property, you can design it, and then you can renovate it, and then I can sell it for this profit. And it's like, yeah, that's great in theory, but I'm not cutting corners. Like, when we uncover these moldy studs, we're not just going to cover them up with drywall. Like, we're going to have to figure out what to do to clean that mold out. We're going to have to, fix this thing so it's right. So my numbers, I'm not going to build this thing the cheapest way possible. I'm going to build it right. Now we'll work with you to make sure that we can deliver something that's cost conscious, but at the same token, we're not sweeping things under the rug and covering things up and putting lipstick on a pig. We're not doing that. And so that's why we tend to work better for owners as opposed to investors, even though we're also investors. Like, we do flip houses, we build things like that, but we do it knowing that this is going to be somebody's home.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you have that in mind, it definitely adds a lot of a purpose to it. Obviously, I think that makes a better product in the end. So I'm glad that you're adding that why to your work. So well, Jonathan, we've taken up a good bit of your time today, and I appreciate you taking time to just explain what you do. It sounds like a really interesting business model, and I've learned a lot from you. Was there anything else you wanted to share about anything today that we didn't
just
hit?
check us out. We're at WOLK360.com, and you can find us on all the socials: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Got some great entertaining videos on YouTube. But yeah, check us out, and if we can help you, we'd love to help you out. If anything we've said today resonates with you, let's talk.
Okay, for sure. And are you do you do work just in your local area? Is it more spread out?
We're pretty much North Carolina. We are looking at some other projects. In the past, I've worked kind of all over the country and some international projects as well. Currently, we're pretty much North Carolina, although we are exploring some projects elsewhere. So yeah, like I said, if for the right people, for the right project, we'll consider just about anything. It meets our parameters, we meet your parameters. It's a good opportunity. Let's talk.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Jonathan. It was a pleasure to have you on today. Take care.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to today's episode of Enhance, and please leave